Hi to all you truth seekers out there. I'm really going to put the cat among the pigeons in this talk, but you know, as a highly advanced cosmic being said in 1961, the first stage of my development and yours, the first stage is bravery. So I'm being brave and I'm really going to put the cat among the pigeons. There are certain things which I've covered before in other talks, and I just need to set the scene for you now so you know where I'm coming from. And I emphasize that I am able to say the things that I will be saying for the simple reason that since 1980, December 1980, I have been a formal student of a pretty advanced master, namely Sir George King, founder of the Aetherius Society. But I do stress I'm not here per se to represent the society. I'm speaking off my own back. But on the 17th of this month, just over a week's time, I will have been a member of this society for 40 years. And it's amazing what you can learn in 40 years. I think I've said that before. But it's true, it's true. And when you listen to a master who knows, you know, and one gains faith in this master, as thousands of people around the world already have, you know, there's a lot that one can say. I've made this point as well before, and I'm going to emphasize it now before I get into what we might call the story. And that is that mainstream science, which I'm not knocking, I'm a fan of science, and I have some people in the scientific movement that I have a great deal of affection for, even though we disagree on numerous things. Personally, I have affection and hopefully some friendship with some of them. Okay. So it's so easy on such a vast subject to lose your track, even immediately. So I'm going to be dealing with some things that they won't like. And one of them is that mainstream science, despite its apparent progress, or those who are members of that movement, they are not the only custodians of knowledge on this planet. They're not. Mankind, in fact, in all life, not only on this planet, but throughout the whole of the cosmos, the universe, all life is intrinsically spiritual. When you look at the universe, when you look at any aspect of science, philosophy, any subject whatsoever, if you want to understand it, you've got to look with spiritual eyes, not basic materialistic eyes. And there are individuals on this earth. I know the names of some of them. I physically met and spoken to one of them a number of times. You know, beings who are enlightened. These are individuals who have spent not only years, decades, but many lives studying advanced yoga, which has brought about within them the ability to consciously raise their energetic vibrations and move from conscious perception into super-conscious perception. While you're limited to basic consciousness, I've said this before too, you can only see some of the more basic materialistic manifestation that's around you. And you will only see maybe 3 or 4, maximum 5% if you're lucky, of what's around you. But once the individual trains themselves using proven practices which have been in use for thousands of years and have been proven to work, how much repeatability do you want science? you know. Once people start using these practices, it takes a while. You won't do it overnight, but you can learn to raise your vibrations, and you actually begin to see things more as they really are, and not the illusion that most of us are currently seeing around us, which is a tiny, tiny little percentage of what's here. Okay, so there are individuals who know far more about science, far more about most things, than any of our professional and amateur scientists. But you see, it's not only learning physics facts, historical facts and stuff like that, it's also they also learn about how to behave, attitudes. And sometimes the lessons can be quite hard and quite persistent, because some lessons we have to learn, and everybody has to learn somewhere down the line. And one of the things that they learn is that it's wrong to force an opinion on someone else, because everybody has a degree of free will, and that must not be trespassed on. There's a statement to that effect in the Bible, isn't it? Don't take this wrong, don't take the words too literally, but it says something like, thou shalt not upset the mind of the heathen. In other words, if somebody believes something different to you, you cannot force it on them. Each individual has to choose what they want to believe off their own back without being pressured. And that is why those who know more than any of our scientists will not come and tell them. But any of the scientists, or anyone who's interested in truth seeking, can find out the information that they have. A lot of it is not secret, but you've got to go and find it. They won't bring it to you. And that's the reason why a lot of people, when it comes to the real thing, the great truths in life, is why people don't know more about it. I'm going to start looking at some aspects of our history, because all through our history, which goes back a lot further than most academics even begin to suspect, there has been a percentage of our race who have, in the Star Wars terminology, have turned to the dark side of the Force. I'm afraid they have. It's very tempting. It's not easy to gain power when one turns to the dark side. I shouldn't laugh, it's not funny, but I'm just thinking of Star Wars. It's not easy, but it's easier to go in that direction than it is to turn in the evolutionary sense upwards to the light, as it were. It's a little more difficult to gain knowledge and experience when you talking spiritually, when you turn to the light. It's easier to turn to the darkness and to the to evil, as we might call it. And a lot have done this, and they cooperate together, and there is an evil hierarchy on this earth, and they have worked for millennia, all the way through our history, which goes a long way back. They have worked to keep the mass of humanity in ignorance, and they're very clever with their strategies. And once organized religions, if you like, I prefer to say organized spirituality, has been formed or started to form, it automatically becomes a threat to them. So what they have done is they have infiltrated so-called religious movements through history. They have used a technique which has been used all the way back. Anyone who knows about military tactics, will know that very often when one army can't go face to face with another army and win, because they are more powerful, providing one has patience, there is a way of dealing with this, and that is you send individuals in, agents, who show empathy with the enemy and make out that they want to be one of them. And over time they gradually acquire power for themselves in the enemy's camp, so to speak. And once they gain more and more power, they then destroy that movement from within. And that has been done repeatedly. That is what has been done with some of the mainstream religious movements. But I want to put the cat among the pigeons because it will help to make some people think. We'll go back in our history to approximately, I don't know the exact date, but I believe it's round about 5,000 years ago, about 3000 BC. Beings from other worlds, which I've often spoken about, quite real, living, physical beings, beings who are millions and in some cases hundreds of millions of years senior to us, they have tried to help us in a whole host of different ways, but they are limited as to how much intervention they can bring about. Because mankind has been so naughty, there are aspects of the karmic law which prevent them intervening directly much of the time, and so they've had to do it discreetly as well, to help us. What started to happen, it may have happened before that, but I'm only going back about 5,000 years, is that a highly advanced being from the planet Saturn, not guesswork, volunteered to split off, as it were, part of his consciousness so that he could for a time inhabit a body born on Earth and operate here in the guise of an Earthman, but give information out in certain ways so that he could teach those who were less evolved than him. The great Lord Krishna came to this earth and was born in a baby's body, somewhat like us, in a body very much like ours, but the consciousness, the intelligence that was operating in that body was from the planet Saturn, an earth body but with a cosmic intelligence. And this has happened a number of times through our history, and I'll only mention some of them. Some of you out there will know who some of these are, but I'm afraid there are a lot of people who don't recognize these beings for what they are or what they were. What they are, because they're still very much alive. They haven't died. Nobody ever dies. We just reincarnate. On other planets they don't reincarnate. Anyway, the Lord Krishna came here, and the Gita, the Bhagavad Gita, deals with some of the teachings of the Lord Krishna. Over the course of the following centuries, other great masters came from other places. I don't know where they all, the ones I'm going to mention, where they all came from. I know where some of them came from. And again, it isn't guesswork. But we had the great master Patanjali, that some of you will know about. We had masters come to Earth, in Earth bodies, over to the Far East. Great masters like Lao Tse, if I pronounce it right, Lao Tse, Confucius, and others. We had approximately, just coming up to about 2,500 years ago, we had a Venusian master who volunteered to suffer limitations, or at least part of his consciousness to suffer limitations in an earth body, and again he had a body born for him in India, and we know him as the Lord Buddha. This next statement is really going to throw the cat among the pigeons in some quarters. With those who are open-minded and have done some of their homework, they will already know that what I'm about to say is true. About just over 400 years after the birth of Buddha, another Venusian volunteered to come and live on Earth for a while. And we know him as the Master Jesus, who said over and over again in conversation with many people that he came from the bright and morning star. Of course he did, which is Venus, the same as Buddha did before him. There's been quite a few elevated beings who have come to Earth from Venus. There are Venusian masters walking around this Earth now. Some of them, of course, not born into Earth bodies, but have here, as it were, incognito, and they're carrying out certain strategies, in the background. There was one Venusian who is known to some of you, unfortunately is not well enough known, who is known as the Sanat Kumara. According to the Brahmin tables, the Sanat Kumara came to Earth 18,617,841 years before the birth of Jesus. That's more than 18.5 million years ago. So man, as man, was on Earth around about that time. In fact, that was that was towards the end of, I believe, a 200,000 year window when our race, came to this Earth, between 18,800,000 and 18,600,000 years ago. The Sanat Kumara came to Earth not in an Earth body. He wasn't born on Earth like these other masters I've mentioned, but he came here as a cosmic being, as a being from another world, and has remained on Earth right up until 1956, when very, very, very advanced beings out there, beings known as Lords of Karma, basically told the Sanat Kumara, which is what we called him, told him, you have given up enough of your time for this planet and for the people on this planet. Now you need to go and carry on with your own evolution. So the Sanat Kumara was ordered by his seniors to leave and go and do his own thing now. But the position he was holding had to be kept. And so in 1956, in fact, it was 1956 when that being from Venus that we know as the Lord Buddha volunteered to come back to Earth and take over from the Sanat Kumara. And like the Sanat Kumara, he was not born this time in an Earth body. There is a large spacecraft which is in a geostationary orbit over the Gobi Desert. It's known to some people as Shambhala. That's a name which is very often misused and misunderstood, and people refer to ground cities and hidden cities and the like. Now, it's not a city on the ground. Shambhala is about the size of a city. It's a pretty big spacecraft. It could easily be a couple of miles long. I don't know the actual size, but it could easily be that sort of size. And it's on a higher vibratory level, probably level 4, I would have thought, of the 7 planes on plane number 7, plane number 4. And it's a physical spacecraft in a geostationary orbit. And it came here over 18,600,000 years ago. It was created, in fact, for the Sanat Kumara. And although he left in 1956, the Lord Buddha took up residence on Shambhala, and he now is the Kumara, or Lord, of Shambhala. He's in charge of Shambhala. So he's physically here. How many Buddhists know that Buddha is physically not on the surface of the earth, but he is in the region of this earth and has been since 1956? And the big thing is that it didn't really stop there. We've had a whole series of masters which are part of the same ongoing plan. Just like the dark forces on this earth, as David Icke will confirm, the dark forces on this earth, the evil ones, they tiptoe through their strategies so that most people don't pick up on what they're doing. Because if they go too fast, people will recognize it and they'll get up and rebel, you see. But in a similar way, but for totally the opposite reason, the great masters from outside of this earth who've been helping us through the millennia, they also work very slowly. And about 5,000 years ago, as part of the same ongoing plan, the Lord Krishna came here. I can't be sure exactly of the order of all these masters, but we have such masters as Patanjali, Lao Tse, I Ching, Confucius, then we have Sankaracharya, there's Buddha, Jesus, in modern times Sri Ramakrishna, Sri Sivananda, and the last one in the series, are you listening to this? The last one in the series, who this time was born in England and was from a Martian background, not Venusian, so not as advanced as Jesus, but had a far, far more difficult mission in many respects than Jesus did. And that's not putting Jesus down in any way, but this master, the last one, who I'm going to refer to in a second, had one of the most difficult tasks of any of the masters, because he came to herald in the turning point in our history, the so-called latter days. And as a result, he had a very difficult time. Now, he was born in Shropshire, in England, in 1919, to, as it were, complement him, but in a slightly different way. There were two other masters who were also born, like him, in earth physical bodies round about that time. There are very important reasons, very relevant reasons why we haven't been told much about the other two. So I couldn't put names to them, but we know that they were there. And this master in England, with his two associates, became known in modern times as the three adepts. But they weren't earth adepts, they were cosmic adepts, and they carried out all sorts of missions over a 43-year period. And in 1997, the master that I've been a student of for 40 years left this earth. As far as we're concerned, he got out of his basic physical body. In other words, as far as the Orthodox mind is concerned, he died. His body was cremated, of course. But the master himself, the intelligence part of that being, as far as we know, because we had no contact with him since then, as far as we know, he has physically left this earth and has gone to other places. Who knows where he is now? He might be thousands of light years away as I speak. I don't know. But he carried out a whole host of, different missions, some of which I'm just going to briefly touch on. The main point I want to get across with all of these is there is only one God, which does exist. It's not an individual, it's not a man, it's not an individual being. It's a creative force or a creative source. There is only one God. And the laws which control, which govern the whole of the universe, can be understood to a fair degree by virtually anyone once it's been explained to people. You don't have to know about mathematics, or even sacred geometry. You just have to be open-minded, use common sense, use basic logic, and listen to someone who knows. And the thing I can say is quite, some people will disagree with this. But as far as I'm concerned, it's perfectly correct. From the Lord Krishna right up to Sir George King, and there are one or two others out there whose names I haven't mentioned. And as far as concepts are concerned, they all taught the same things. There is no conflict. But you see, Krishna and the Lord Buddha, for example, came to India. At the times when they came, there were many people in India, as we now call it, who were pretty knowledgeable in terms of spiritualism, not spiritualism, but spiritual things, and mysticism. And so Krishna and Buddha could use a fairly technical language when talking to them. That master we know vaguely as Jesus, he initially, not exclusively, but initially, came to people, I'm just going to generalize here and just say the Middle East. I'm not going to be more specific than that. But he came to people who were not so knowledgeable in terms of spiritual and mystical matters. And so he had to phrase things at a much simpler level. And one of the main things that they all taught was what is known in Eastern philosophy as karma, which is the law. Even our scientists know that there is this law, but it's not appreciated most of the time for what it is. It's relegated to just one of these laws of physics, when in actual fact it's the main one. Krishna, Buddha and others who actually stated it technically said that action and reaction are opposite and equal. That is it. And everything in the universe operates within that law. Everything. Nothing is outside of that. When Jesus was talking to, ordinary people who were not particularly well educated, and you had farmers and fishermen, and tradesmen and whatever, they wouldn't have known what he meant if he'd have said, action and reaction are opposite and equal. So he made it simpler for them. He said, as you sow, so shall you reap. That is karma. He taught the same things that Buddha did, that Krishna did, that Patanjali did, Lao Tse, I Ching, Confucius, Sri Sivananda, Sri Ramakrishna, Sir George King. They all taught the same things. They went to different levels and they used different approaches depending on who they were talking to at the time. But they conceptually taught the same things. I mean, it's so easy to see, isn't it? Hinduism is a yoga-based religion which includes karma and reincarnation. Buddhism is a yoga-based religion which includes karma and reincarnation. The teachings of Jesus before certain people from a big city took the religion on board and made their headquarters in that city, you know what I mean? And warped and distorted the teachings of Jesus out of recognition for political ends. The teachings of Jesus before it was subjected to that was a yoga-based religion which included karma and reincarnation. One thing, I don't think it's in the Bible, I'm fairly sure it's not in the Bible, but it's known to be true. John the Baptist went on a journey, he ended up in Tibet. He went specifically to a monastery in Tibet which is called the Tor Cross Monastery. I don't know if it exists anymore, but it certainly did. And John the Baptist, who of course was related to Jesus, actually arranged for Jesus to have training and initiation in advanced yoga. And later on, of course, during those missing years, Jesus travelled down to India and then up into Tibet, and he spent some time in Tibet at the Tor Cross Monastery where he was trained, presumably by that great Saturnian master who is still on earth today, and is simply known as the Lord Babaji. The Lord Babaji is the most advanced master to ever live on earth among Earthmen. He's still here. Some people would be surprised if they came to learn how long Babaji, the Saturnian master, how long he's physically been on earth. He hasn't been born into an earth body. And he's got complete freedom of movement around this planet because he is formally, officially known as the Lord of the Earth. He's the senior master here. He can go anywhere on this earth that he sees fit. There aren't any rooms or any locations that he can't go to. He could go to some of these secret, underground complexes, that are part of the military, whatever. He could walk around in there, watching and listening, completely invisible to people's normal sight. And I'm sure that he's done this. There isn't anything they're doing that he doesn't know about or can't get to know about. He can go anywhere he wants. He can go onto the higher vibratory planes whenever he wants to. He has complete mastery over his body structure. He has complete freedom of movement around the planet. He is the one who acts as the intermediary from higher sources on other planets in this system. You see, when all of these masters, going from Krishna all the way through to Sir George King in modern times, in order for them to come here in the guise of being earth people, the karmic law had to be manipulated so that there would be an allowance for that to happen. Mankind's karma is so bad that the karma, it had to be engineered, to produce enough positive karma, if you like, or karmic allowance for them to come. And more often than not, it was the Lord Babaji who was the one who had to sort this out, you see. And of course, being the most advanced master on the planet, he was the one, we believe certainly, and there's no reason to suspect otherwise, he was the one who trained Jesus in advanced yoga. All the things that Jesus did, like walking on the water, it's a yogic practice. You can learn to walk on water. It will take you at least 10 years of very hard disciplined yoga, but you can learn to do it. And it's not breaking any laws of physics, it's knowing how to manipulate physical laws, which Jesus did. Some of the practices he did involved tremendous self-discipline. If ordinary people were able to do some of the things that he did at that time, if they were able to do it now, they could not only risk killing themselves, but killing other people and doing tremendous damage to the planet, because those forces that he manipulated had to be controlled under strict discipline. Nobody, a categorical, you can tell this, as I said this before, you can tell this is spontaneous, can't you? Categorical statement. Nobody, I don't care what they call themselves or what religious path they claim to follow, nobody is going to make any respectable spiritual or religious, if you like, progress until they start taking on board self-discipline. You have to discipline yourself, because the more a person progresses, the more physical power becomes available to that person. And they have to be disciplined because of the damage that they could do if they didn't have that discipline. Some of the yoga practices, this shouldn't put people off, because when you're ready for such practices, you will already have the discipline necessary. But some of the yogic practices, if a person tried to carry them out when they weren't ready, they could easily kill themselves and do tremendous damage to the body, or do tremendous damage to the body. And this is why you've got to have discipline, because the more you progress, the more powerful you become. One of the great subtleties And you find this in the martial arts. I haven't studied per se the martial arts, but I've learned a little bit about spirituality and mysticism. And one of the things that, one of the great subtleties is that an individual, as they progress through many lives, they learn how to manipulate energies, how to perform certain feats. And as a self-discipline, they learn how to do it and then don't do it. The great subtlety, I thought I saw somebody in my room. I'm sure I've got a group of people over there that I can't see. They're listening, stood nodding. You can't see me, can you? No, I can't see you. Anyway, yes, you learn how to do certain things in order not to do it. Because when you become more powerful in many ways, there is the temptation to use it, and you can use your powers in inappropriate ways. So you've got to have discipline. If you haven't got self-discipline, sometimes you've got to tell the truth. If you haven't got self-discipline, you're not going anywhere. In terms of evolutionary progression, which is the same as spirituality. It's the same thing. Anyway. Oh dear. This is such a vast subject, as you can see. And I'm not working to a script or to a definite path. As I said, I'm following this where it seems appropriate to go at the time. We came onto this earth over 18,600,000 years ago, and every one of us, whether you believe in reincarnation or not, whether you like it or not, whether your religious movement accepts it or not, is irrelevant. We're doing it, and we're all doing it. We've all had thousands of lives, and most people can't even remember what they did yesterday, let alone 400 years ago or 400 lives ago. You know, I'm not going into any detail regarding myself, but I do remember snippets from at least 3 past lives. From 400 years ago, about 900 years ago, and I remember little bits from my past life, which is just in the region of 100 years ago. Just over 100 years ago, sorry. So yes, I mean, some of this, other people remember more than I do. So yes, it's quite real. So we've been coming up all the way through these thousands and thousands of lives, actually for millions of years, as man. We've had great cultures that we now, looking back, refer to as Lemuria, which was destroyed in atomic war. We rose again, Atlantis, destroyed it in atomic war. We rose up again, into modern culture, and those evil forces, those very well organised dark forces behind the scenes, who are manipulating the named people that you know about, that the conspiracy people talk about, all these, you know who I mean. I'm not going to say their names because I'll probably find I'll have a wooden overcoat within a day or two. But you know who I mean. The dark ones behind the scenes manipulate them. They are the puppets. They don't have the power. They do what they're told to do. And this has been going on and on and on. And had intervention from outside not taken place, in 1962 the Cuba crisis was going to be another atomic war which would have brought about the end of this culture. But we were being watched, as we have been all through history. And there are great beings out there, and some on this planet, who know every single move that the black magicians are making, every thought they have. None of it is secret. We may not know, but there are advanced beings, millions, even hundreds of millions of years more advanced than us, who can mentally tune in. They can read, as it were, the thoughts of all the evil black magicians and whatever. They know what they're doing. They know what their strategies are. Every thought they have, if they suddenly decide to change their strategy, immediately there are highly evolved beings on this planet who know that they've changed their strategy. They know what they're going to do. And they're in the background, they're making strategic moves which will ultimately counteract that, because they won't succeed, the same as they haven't in the past. One thing I've commented over and over again on videos and when I'm talking to people is, not nature, history repeats itself if you let it. All through our history, which goes back actually some millions of years, you've had murderous dictators and evil regimes who rise, have power for a period of time, and they fall. Others rise, they have power for a period of time, they fall. And it's gone on over and over and over and over again. The same pattern, just the same as it's happening now. And the ones who are trying to get the power now, who think they've got it, are blind to the fact that they're doing exactly what others have done before them, and they've always failed. And the current ones will fail. It always happens. You cannot get global domination. It will never happen. They reach a certain point, they keep a certain power, and then they've gone. And that's what's going to happen with the current ones. Just the same as all the past ones. You know, it's not going to be any different. It just repeats and repeats and repeats. But they've been watching. When they saw that the black magicians behind the scenes were psychologically manipulating people when the Cuba crisis was kicking off, they basically, knowing our history, they know it perfectly. In fact, there are probably hundreds of thousands, if not millions, of cultures throughout this galaxy who know our history better than we do. But anyway, the local ones were watching, and they basically said, these are my words of course, but you get the idea, they basically said, this shall stop. We've destroyed our civilizations, our cultures, at least twice on this earth with atomic war, and in 1962 it looked like it was going to happen again, and they said no. And right at the last moment they applied certain pressures which killed the conflict, killed it dead. Politicians no doubt got the credit for it, but they weren't the ones who stopped it. I'm now going to tell you something which I don't know if I should, but I think people should know this. It's not a secret, and you can check up on this because it's been publicly stated. It's in print and it's on audio recordings that you can acquire. It's not a secret. Many years ago, a very advanced being from another world gave mankind an ultimatum. And I'm going to tell you, as far as I can remember the actual wording, what he said. So don't hold me 100% to the specific words. Just go by the gist of what I'm saying, in case I get one of the words wrong. But you'll get the point. They said that if mankind gets to a stage where we can seriously damage this earth, then mankind's free will end, and it will end abruptly. If it means killing most of the population of this earth to protect this earth, then that cleansing will be brought about. Why do you think some of their craft have been seen round missile silos, and they've been disabling the missile silos, the missiles? Many of the missiles in their silos that don't work, they're useless. They've been disabled because they don't want to have to kill, a large percentage of mankind. And they can do it, and they can do it in a fraction of a second. They don't have to land, They can do it from probably even millions of miles away, And they can do it in the correct way, and there is a correct way, So anyway, they stopped that. They have tried through history to inspire those who are willing to listen. And when the master, I don't think I've mentioned his name, have I? I'm not sure if I have. The master I've been following for 40 years, Sir George King, founder of the Aetherius Society, Western Master of Yoga, and that's a gross understatement. And if you follow this up, you'll find out what I mean. because he wasn't what he seemed to be. He carried out a number of missions with his 2 colleagues, and occasionally joined by another 2. So there were those known as the 3 adepts who have been working together for many, many centuries in other places, in other conflicts outside of this earth. They are trained. They are trained fighters, and that's why they came into this earth, to do the job that we couldn't do. But occasionally they were joined by another 2. And so we also refer to the 5 adepts, the 3 plus the 2. That all of mankind, regardless of your background, all of mankind owes a great debt to. Just checking that the recording is still going. Yeah. One of the things that they did as part of a clean-up on the lower astral realms of Earth, where the most evil of the evil, you might say, normally live, they got rid of 1 or 2 of these pretty advanced masters. But between 1967 and 1969, make sure I get the years right, they carried out, the 3 joined by the 2, they carried out a mission known as Operation Carmelite, during which they pursued that most skilled of all the black magicians that is vaguely known to millions as Satan. They themselves didn't kill him, but they managed to get him in a very vulnerable position. And right at that last moment in 1969, that other master I've mentioned, known as Babaji, who's the most advanced master on the earth, the Lord of the earth, he came in at the last moment and dealt the final blow. And the Aetherius Society was the first organisation, just after that, to come out publicly and said, Satan, the devil, is dead. That's right, he's gone. People still, oh, Satan, the devil, because they don't know he's not there anymore. Now he's been shipped out. He's gone. Anyway, this is a long waffle. I'm just going to mention 2 more things. One of the things they wanted to teach us is how we can stand on our own feet. The more knowledge we have, the more power we can wield, the more we can manipulate our own karmic pattern, and the more we can help others. So in 1961, one very advanced Martian intelligence, who goes under a pseudonym of Mars Sector 6, gave a series of orations in Los Angeles which were recorded at the time and made available. It's in book form, and you can actually acquire the recordings on CD. I've actually got them here. They're on my computer as well. And it was all published. Unfortunately, this program doesn't show me what I can see with the camera, so I've got to hope that that's in view. This is the book, The 9 Freedoms, which was given by a Martian intelligence. The first part of that book, just 1 chapter, deals with our past history, a précis of our past history going back over 18,600,000 years. And this is from somebody who watched it happen, so he's not guessing. And of course, the information was given through Sir George King, founder of the Aetherius Society, who was a Western master of yoga. That book is worth, thousands, tens of thousands of pounds, and it's sold for a pittance. Most of the information in that book mankind did not have access to until that was given in 1961. I hope that's in frame. I think it is. And each of the 9 chapters describes a stage that we all go through in terms of our own personal evolution. These are the stages that you and I are going to go through, and it takes our own evolution, our personal evolution, as far as it can go in this solar system, going hundreds of millions of years into the future. And that is the path that you and I are going to take. Some of us are already trying to start on the first step or two, but it tells you what you will go through in the future. Not on a daily basis, but the major stages you'll go through. So that gives you knowledge that you didn't have access to before. Just before that, in 1958, that master that millions know vaguely as Jesus, he gave a series of teachings, again, which was recorded. You'll understand that one of the problems in the past, say for example with the Sermon on the Mount, that Jesus was stood there, he was surrounded by people who were listening to him, probably far more people than anyone other than Jesus would have seen, because there were people on all the different realms listening to him, not just the people sat on the ground near him. There probably were hundreds of thousands of people listening to him when he gave those orations that we call the Sermon on the Mount. But the point is, it was written down afterwards. One of the problems with that is, even if it was written down correctly, generations later you don't know that it was written down correctly, because you've just got written text. So you have to have faith that it was written down correctly, but you don't know unless you were there and you can remember it. And as a result, only the people who were there on the different planes, not just this basic physical plane, actually heard it. So what about millions of people all around the world who never got to hear that? They never got to hear it. All they can do is read it, maybe centuries or tens of centuries later. Now, because I'm not going into specifically what, but some of the religious teachings that are available these days are not what they started off as. Some of them have been changed. We have been on this earth over 18.5 million years, and it's got to the point now where we're so short of time that the powers that be outside of this earth, and some of them on this earth, are trying to encourage as many people as possible to learn about spirituality, mysticism, and the most important key to your and my progress is service to others. And it's only, with a capital O, only through service to others that anybody can progress in these days. But having said that, you don't have to go, it's good for those people who do go to remote villages where there is a disease and dirty drinking water, and all the things that we regularly get in the West, we regularly get told about and maybe haven't witnessed. You don't have to go and do that. Some people do choose to do that, and there's full marks to them for doing it. But there are a lot of people, especially elderly, who can't do that now. So a way of serving other people had to be given that everybody can use. And between August and October 1958, in a little basement chapel in the Fulham Road, Fulham, London, Jesus gave a series on 12 Sunday mornings. He gave what is known as the 12 blessings, and it was recorded on reel-to-reel tape at the time, later updated, of course, onto CDs. But one of the clever strategies was to stop the dark forces changing it. It was recorded at the time, and copies were made pretty quickly and distributed over to Europe, over to the Americas, and stored, in secure vaults. Within days, weeks, certainly no more than a couple of months, there were identical copies on different sides of the world. And the copy that was kept in London was used to make local copies that were distributed to people. So in a very short time, thousands of people were able to listen to these recordings, And because there are so many copies of the original, the dark forces can't get in and change it. It's so simple and clever strategy. And those 12 blessings are published in this book, which is called The 12 Blessings. I hope the light isn't reflecting. It's a gold coloured book, and I'm hoping the light isn't reflecting off the cover. I won't go into detail on it other than to say that the 12 blessings, each one of the 12 is essentially a focal point for prayer. And it starts simple with, remember during the Sermon on the Mount, blessed are the peacemakers. Well, in order to provide continuity, the same person who gave the Sermon on the Mount gave this, and the first of the 12 blessings, the title of it is Blessed are they who work for peace. And it goes through 12 focal points for prayer. The first 6 are, shall we say, earthy. The 6th one, of course, is blessed are they who heal in these days of great pain and suffering. You know, those people who are healing, you know, even in the hospitals, especially in the hospitals, but people who give spiritual healing and whatever, you know, they should be blessed for what they're doing. And the 6th blessing is dedicated to them, to the group soul of those who are giving healing. But when you go to the 7th, it starts to become cosmic. The 7th one is blessed is the Mother Earth. Remember, this is Jesus saying this. We call him the Master Jesus. And he describes what the earth actually is. And I bet there aren't many astronomers out there, you know, and geophysicists who could mention most of what's in there, you know, before they read it. They couldn't, because most people don't know what the earth is, and it's described for them. And then it moves out away from the earth. You know, blessed is the mighty sun. And Jesus describes what the sun actually is. And I guarantee most of the people at NASA won't know what the sun actually is. Most of the astronomers won't know what the sun actually is. You know, oh, it's a big ball of hot gas. It's a, you know, atomic furnace. They don't even come close. That doesn't begin to come close to what the sun actually is. Get the 12 blessings and read what Jesus said about it. That's a being who has travelled around the galaxy and even between the galaxies probably. He knows what the sun is. He comes from a race that's hundreds of millions of years senior to us. And then he moves out into space. You know, blessed are the lords, supreme lords of karma. Read the chapter, and it tells you what they are. You know, blessed is the great being known as the galaxy. How many astronomers know that the galaxy is a living being? It's not just a collection of planets and, you know, star systems. It has a life force. It's not a single life force like me or you. It's a vast, vast, vast multiple entity, but it operates as a single entity. It's a living being. Going above that, blessed are the supreme lords of creation, beings who bring galaxies into being. And Jesus describes them. And the 12th one is a description of God given by Jesus. And he calls it the Absolute. If you want to know what God is, get a copy of the 12 blessings and read what Jesus actually said. And if you want, you can acquire the CDs from the Atheist Society website, and you can actually listen to the audio recordings of Jesus giving the blessings, complete with inflection and intonation. It's there for you to listen to. So unlike the Sermon on the Mount, everybody in this world at the moment could get to listen to it. See, because it was recorded. And so there's no he say, she say. This is it, you know. And the point about this is that the 12 blessings is a spiritual tool that you can use. Even if somebody's housebound, even if they're bedbound, they can sit in their chair, lay in their bed if necessary. It's not the best way to do it, but you can do it that way. It's best to sit, you know, upright, put the hands in the prayer mudra, which is like that, not like that, disciplined, like that, and imagine white light flowing through you and read the 12 blessings. And once you've worked your way through the 12 blessings, there are people out there you will never get to hear about who will have benefited from what you did. You know, and you can serve mankind in a definite way. That's why it was given. There are other things as well, but this has got to already to be a very long video, so I'm going to stop it now. And if you'd like to contact me privately, you know, then I'm going to be very choosy if anybody does this, because I'm bound to get skeptics. But if anybody, you know, if you've got any questions, you can do it in the comments, you know, questions in the comments, or contact me privately. But anyone who's being facetious or anti, I will not reply, of course, which is understandable. So I bless everybody who's watched this, and I hope you've gained something from it. But as you can see, it's such a vast subject. I could be talking for the next 12 hours, and I still wouldn't cover it. So let's hope it's meant something to somebody. Thank you.